By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to expect when you finally establish no contact with the narcissist. Let's dive in. Hey friends, Tamie M. Joyce here, empowerment life coach, creator of the Freedom class and the Ascension class. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Please take a second to say hello and introduce yourself in the comment section below. And if you're back, welcome back. Thanks for showing up and for tuning in. Either way, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos throughout the week. So let's talk about 7 things that narcissists do when you finally decide it's time to go no contact. But before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about no contact first. First and foremost, there are a lot of really legitimate reasons why many of you can't or won't go no contact with the destructive narcissist in your life. And that's fair enough. If that's you, this video isn't for you, right? We all have to do what we have to do in our own individual lives based on our circumstances and what we have going on at the time to best manage the place where we find ourselves. So fair enough if you're not able, willing, or ready to go no contact, no sweat. I totally honor and respect that. But for many of you, no contact is absolutely the best course of action, and you know it, whether you've established it or you're preparing to go no contact. You know that this really is going to be a key game changer and difference maker for you in terms of your ability to heal and recover. And while no contact is certainly not easy, we're often racked with irrational feelings of guilt and shame and taking on responsibility that isn't our own. It can be very confusing. Oftentimes we're actually fully addicted. We're trauma bonded to these people. So when we do go no contact, there's going to be a period of withdrawal that can be, I can tell you from my own experience, excruciatingly painful. And no different than when the smoker quits smoking or the alcoholic quits drinking or the drug addict quits whatever drug of choice is their particular form of self-medicating and sedating themselves. When you establish no contact with an individual that you are trauma bonded to, that you may be love addicted to, full-blown love addiction, right? The brain's biochemistry causing literal physical withdrawals when we do what we need to do to break free from this type of toxic, dysfunctional, certainly, and destructive relationship dynamic. We're going to go through some withdrawal. It's going to be uncomfortable. And in my opinion and experience, sometimes that discomfort can go on for weeks, if not a few months, right? As we ride that wave. And establishing and maintaining no contact can be the difference maker in whether or not we get to the other side. No, again, no different than the alcoholic who puts the cork in the bottle or the drug addict who puts the drug of choice down. If you're white knuckling it in your withdrawal as you attempt to break free from this dysfunctional and painful dynamic, if you're white knuckling it and not actually like just putting the drug down or the cork in the bottle, as opposed to actually doing the deep dive healing and recovery work, here's what's true. Not only is relapse on this toxic, painful, dysfunctional relationship likely, it's almost guaranteed. It's almost guaranteed. So we go no contact out of a sense of self-preservation, and because we get to a place of realizing that we need to do what we need to do to take care of ourselves, because this is not going to change. They don't change, right? So we go no contact out of self-preservation. But if we don't actually support ourselves with a solid support system and deep dive healing and recovery work to deal with the issues that brought us into that dynamic to begin with, the likelihood that we're going to end up getting sucked right back into that toxic abuse cycle is really, really high. And I mean really, really high. So just something to keep in mind as we dive into this conversation. Don't just put the cork in the bottle of that toxic, painful, destructive relationship. Actually prepare to surround yourself with a solid support system of people who actually get it, and B, are living in the solution, not just regurgitating the problem all day long, but actually focused on solutions that work. And B, get yourself into some form of formal healing and recovery work specific to these issues so that you're not white knuckling it through no contact. And you are far less likely to get pulled back into that painful, destructive dynamic at any point in time. Makes a big difference. Now, the first thing the narcissist is going to do when you go no contact is gather the troops, literally. So this means all the flying monkeys and little minions and enablers and anyone else who will listen. The narcissist is going to be in their ear, gathering the troops around them, calling in the allies. So certainly they'll already have their little circle of, again, flying monkeys, little minions, and enablers. You know, these are folks who are steeped in denial. They choose denial over truth and courage. They lack backbone of their own, right? For whatever reason, it serves them to be part of that narcissistic, that sick little toxic circle and dynamic. Maybe they're gossip addicts themselves and they really get off on that aspect of it. Maybe they've got, you know, some serious sense of loyalty there that, you know, that's none of our business, right? The reason that, you know, people choose to align with high spectrum destructive narcissists, even low to medium spectrum destructive narcissists, but toxic destructive people wreaking havoc, targeting and doing all manner of damage. The reason people choose to align with that type of individual is it's none of our business, right? The point being, the very first thing the narcissist is going to do when you break contact with them, when you put up that serious freaking boundary, call it a wall, and they can't get through to you, they're going to go running to all of their flying monkeys, little minions and enablers, and anyone else who will listen so they can gather the troops and pull the allies in and get everyone to agree how awful you are and what a victim they are to your villain, how poorly you behaved, how poorly you have treated them, no matter how much evidence to the contrary. They will hone in on any little thing they can choose to, or make stuff up if they have to, whatever it takes, leaving, you know, lying by omission, leaving huge chunks of the truth out of the equation. They will come up with a narrative and a story to where they land on the victim side of the story, making you the villain and making sure that everyone is on their side and aligned with them, while you're being scapegoated, thrown under the bus, and marginalized at the very least. That's the very first thing they're going to do. When you go no contact, they're going to get busy gathering the troops all day long to anyone who will listen. So know that up front. Expect that. Our job is to get our self-esteem to a place where we don't care, where our opinion of ourselves is the one that matters most. We know who we are. what we've lived, what we've done, what we haven't done, what we've said, what we haven't said. And all of their little stories and false narratives and distorted perceptions of reality, and whoever chooses to buy into all of that nonsense doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you're doing what you need to do to take care of you, and you may not be a perfect human being. You may very well have done some things you'd do differently if you could do them over again. You're a human being, right? I can tell you, I have at times been quite abusive in response to being abused, right? Poke, 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 poke anyone long enough, and they're going to erupt, right? So we've got to get about the business of letting go of this nonsense of what are they going to say and who are they going to say it to. They're going to say whatever it takes. They will work full-time, double-time, overtime to gather the troops and get everyone over here aligned with them. And we've got to get to a place, like I said, where we're okay. We're good regardless. You know what you've lived. You know what you've done, what you haven't done, what you've said, what you haven't said, and you certainly know what the hell you've been on the receiving end of. And if folks aren't able, willing, or ready for whatever reason to give you the benefit of the doubt and or the benefit of a conversation, not your problem. Fully, if you aren't there yet, you've got work to do. The healing and recovery work to get yourself to the place where you're okay, no matter how much the narcissist works to malign you and paint you, tar you as the villain to their victim. You got to get to a place where you're good. The next thing that narcissists are going to do when you establish no contact is work real hard to flaunt a new source of supply in front of you. Narcissists aren't just energy vampires. They are also very parasitic and codependent in nature. If you're a highly empathic codependent, untreated adult child of family dysfunction, whatever it might be, you are not the only codependent in the dynamic, in the relationship dynamic with the narcissist. Narcissists are highly codependent also, as well as being parasitic, like I said. They need another person to manipulate, use, exploit, siphon the vital life force energy off of, target, project all of their garbage, bullshit, and nonsense onto. So when you establish no contact, what the narcissist is going to do is either circle back to an ex or any other previous source of supply and try to hoover them back in. And if they can't do that, they'll very quickly go out and find a new source of supply and very quickly enmesh with them, and then flaunt that new source of supply all over town, all over the social medias, in the hopes of getting a reaction out of you, in the hopes of hurting, harming you in some way, right? They also tend to be very green with envy. These are people who carry a lot of jealousy. And in their distorted perception of reality, they project all of their own stuff onto their favorite targets, right? So they're automatically going to assume that you're wired the same way. They're green with envy. They're very jealous by nature. So you must be the same way, right? So they're flaunting this new source of supply or an old source of supply. Any source of supply will do, not only so they can get their sick narcissistic needs met, but also so that they can hurt you in the process. Another thing that goes along with this is, in their sick, distorted perception of reality, obviously this serves as evidence that you were the one who was the problem in the relationship. Clearly, if they're in the process of hooking up with someone else and all is well in Never Never Land, right? Obviously, you were the one who was the issue, who was the great issue at large in the relationship. clearly shown by the fact that they've got this new source of supply that they're all hooked up with, right? That's the game that's being played around all of that. It's multifaceted, it's multi-layered, it's real sick, which is why it's a really good idea when you go no contact, in so much as you're able, you go all the way. You don't need to be hit in the face with pictures on social media or anywhere else for that matter. If it means that you don't go to the same places for a little while so that you can avoid bumping into the narcissist and their new source of supply, do what you need to do. This isn't about fairsies and what's right or wrong. Keep your ego out of it and love yourself enough to do what you need to do to take care of yourself and sidestep all the bullshit, sidestep all the nonsense, and block them across all platforms. So when they're working real hard to flaunt that new source of supply, you're immune. You're non-affected. You're taking care of yourself in your own healing and recovery, and you don't get triggered unnecessarily by simply hopping on social media and getting, like I said, punched in the face, smacked in the face with photos that, you otherwise would rather not see, right? Like, we're human beings. We have feelings. We have a heart. Those of us who are highly empathic, we should feel things when we see certain things, when we hear certain things. If it means that you have to set boundaries with mutual people in your life, I'd really rather you didn't share that with me. I'd really rather that we leave so-and-so out of the conversation. I don't need you reporting the play-by-play back to me, who you saw last Saturday, who so-and-so was with last night. I don't need the news broadcast, right? So don't be shy to set boundaries where you need to set boundaries with others in this regard. People love to be in the know and, coming up and delivering the information. You don't need the information. You're busy. You're busy loving you. You're busy taking care of you. You're busy doing your own healing and recovery work. You're busy ascending to the next level of conscious awareness so that you are no longer an emotional, psychological, energetic, vibrational, spiritual match to a parasitic energy vampire whose agenda it is to hurt you any way they can. Now, the next thing to expect, if you've been able to maintain no contact for any length of time, is the hoovering. You can count on that. I've had them try after 10 years of no contact. These folks are relentless and lazy at the same time. It's easier to circle back to an ex 10 years later than it is to get off my couch and go find a new source of supply. So I swear to God, it's like they have a short list of people to, attempt the Hoover with, right? Now, if you want to learn more in detail about hoovering and how to deal with it, you can check out this video here. But suffice to say, when you've maintained no contact for any length of time, you can count on the fact that sooner or later you're going to be hearing from the destructive narcissist again. Often this will be when that new source of supply that they were flaunting all over town in the social medias gets wise and kicks their butt to the curb. When they find themselves standing there without a source of narcissistic supply, that's when they'll pop up, right? And it'll often begin, if they're able to get through via text or messenger or whatever, it'll be a simple, it's the bare minimum, right? Just testing the waters, just putting my little toesy in to test the waters. Has enough time passed? Has this person slipped into codependent amnesia, although the narcissist isn't necessarily aware of codependent amnesia? That really is the underlying, has enough time passed for them to settle down, the anger's worn off, maybe they've forgotten how bad, painful, whatever, whatever, right? So they'll test the waters with the bare minimum. Hi, by text, right? In the hopes that you'll jump all over that. And if you've been white knuckling it, like I said at the beginning of the video, not doing your healing and recovery work, you just put the cork in the bottle and that's it. You haven't been taking care of yourself and moving forward in your own personal journey. Chances are good you're going to fall prey. You're going to fall prey. If you're taking good care of yourself, they're not even going to be able to get through. You will have blocked them across all platforms and they won't be able to get through. So they'll come at you through mutual friends or family. They're not above showing up, sobbing, professing all manner of remorse and undying love on, for example, your brother's doorstep or your parents' doorstep or your best friend's doorstep, or calling them up and trying to use them as the middleman, right? So you might need to have some conversations with some folks and set some real serious boundaries, to where if that kind of nonsense happens, you've got people in your corner who have your back and can send a crystal clear message. There is nothing to be had here. No narcissistic supply, no rekindled romance, no re-engaging in any sort of sick, toxic, dysfunctional friendship. There's nothing to be had here. You have to be prepared to stand your ground and hold firm to no contact if you want to ultimately get to the other side and be left in peace by this individual. Now, comment below and let me know whether or not you've successfully established no contact. And do you have any tips, anything specifically that you found helpful in your own personal experience? Anything in particular that you're struggling with? Drop it in the comments. In addition, if you'd like to learn more about the possibility of working with me in my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, there are links in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with either myself or a member of my team. Now, if they are able to get through to you and succeed with their hoovering attempts, the very next thing coming down the pike is love bombing. We are beginning the toxic abuse cycle all over again, especially if there's been some time and some distance and all the junkies in the room have been jonesing for some time, right? And I say that with all due respect. I mean, the reality is there is an addictive component to these relationships often, which is why we stay in the game. And the reason why folks will spend decades, if not an entire lifetime, cycling through the addictive toxic abuse cycle is because they don't do the real deep dive healing and recovery work required to break free from all of that, right? So with all of that said, if they can get through to you through their hoovering attempts, love bombing is next. This is what's happening. You are being sucked right back into the toxic abuse cycle where you're being idealized before being devalued and then ultimately discarded again. That's the cycle that you're going to be running. Many of you are familiar with it, not just in language, because it's a pattern you've been living in your romantic life and your friendships and at work and with your family of origin. It's really sick. It's really painful, in particular for those of us who are highly empathic, showing up with the purest and best of intent with these individuals who are lacking empathy, lacking in conscience, and couldn't care less about our feelings or what's in our best interest, right? So love bombing. What happens is if they can get a toe in the door, suddenly they begin to morph into that person that you needed them to be to begin with, right? Back when you were being abused, before you established no contact. Now, all of a sudden, they're on their best behavior and they're doing all the right things and they're saying all the right things. And suddenly they can show up on time and be respectful and show you how much they care and how sorry they are. And they're making all kinds of empty promises and future faking and future faking and future faking some more, right? And if you've been white knuckling it through the no contact phase, this is literally going to get you high. That wounded inner child inside of yourself, in your subconscious, that you have yet to acknowledge and address and do the healing and recovery work for. She's starved for all of this attention, or he, either way, starved for all of this attention, all of this love bombing. It's like love heroin, right? So everyone's getting high. And the drag about this is it's temporary, it's very short lived. And they may, depending on the leverage that you have, the consequences, the circumstances, etc., they may be able to maintain best behavior for a little bit, but not too long. That whole situation will have the shelf life of a dairy product. Usually, if the stakes are real high, you might be able to get a few months of consistent best behavior out of them. But in no time, that mask is going to start to slip. In no time, you are going to become the target again. In no time, they are going to be blame shifting and projecting all of their disowned shadow and neurosis and psychosis onto you, because that really is what goes on, right? So understand that if you're standing there getting high, if you've allowed that to happen, if you have not maintained firm no contact out of self-preservation, gotten into your own healing and recovery work, and they've gotten a foot in the door, and now you're standing there and you are on the receiving end of all of this love bombing, the whole cycle starts all over again. And you will be starting from ground zero, or sadly, my friend, lower. It doesn't get easier over time. It gets worse. Our self-esteem takes a bigger hit next time around. It becomes more embarrassing, more painful, more traumatic. The consequences emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, physically, and financially get more and more grave with each relapse on the destructive relationship. So think long and hard before you decide to start falling for the words, the sudden shift and morph into this whole new person who wasn't able to show up before, but suddenly now is more motivated for whatever reason. Think long and hard before you start falling for any of that stuff, because chances are very, very high, extremely high, that there's nothing but more pain and trauma coming down the pike for you. True story. Now, if their hoovering and love bombing attempts don't work, if they aren't successful, here's what you can expect. They will lay in waiting, literally, bide their time, patiently, waiting for an opportunity to exploit you at your weakest. And it's almost eerie how they can perceive. There's an energetic component to all of this, which is, again, why it's so vital that we do the real healing and recovery work to break free from these sick, dysfunctional, destructive dynamics. Even when we go no contact, there are energetic cords between us and those that we are trauma bonded to, right? Which is one of the things that is taken care of when you're doing the work of, say, for example, the Freedom Class or any serious healing and recovery program that you dive into. But the point being, if they can't succeed in hoovering you and love bombing you and pulling you right back in, they'll wait for an opportunity to exploit you when you are at your weakest. And somehow they seem to have the ability to know when the timing is right, when you are faltering a little bit in your stance of no contact, when you're not feeling strong, when you might be really in the thick of it of jonesing through love addiction withdrawal, a very real part of the healing and recovery journey in the beginning, right? Maybe you've had a crisis, or you've lost a loved one, or some misfortune, and they'll seek the opportunity to swoop in, to dive in, and again, exploit that opportunity and exploit you at your weakest. So be aware that just because you haven't heard from them in a few weeks or a few months doesn't mean that they aren't hovering, waiting for an opportunity for when they are able to swoop in and catch you with your guard down when you least expect it, when you're suffering or hurting or struggling in any way because something else has gone on in your life that you're grappling with, right? And they get to charge in and be the great savior, right? They aren't going to save you from anything. They're only going to give you more stuff that you need to save yourself from. But you can predict that with 100% accuracy, 100% certainty. These folks are, if nothing else, predictable. So if they can't succeed in hoovering and love bombing, that doesn't mean that they have entirely disappeared into the ether. If they can seize an opportunity to exploit you when you are weak or vulnerable, they will do that. Now, assuming that all attempts to hoover and love bomb and suck you back in and exploit you at your weakest have failed because you're doing the deal, you've not only established no contact, but you're going to the next level, you're doing your own personal healing and recovery work, all of your time, energy, resources, and attention are focused on you, learning to love you, learning to heal you, learning to take care of you, learning to live your best life as your best self. So you've maintained no contact and all of their nonsense has failed miserably. What you can expect now is a smear campaign. And this is not the same as number one, gathering the troops. This is next level. Gathering the troops, as I said, is a question of, spreading the narrative, right? Getting all the allies over here and making sure they appear to be the victim and you're the villain. Well, a smear campaign is a whole other level. They can't get through to you. They can't use you, manipulate you, target you, exploit you anymore. They can't even access you because you're doing all the right things. So now they're going to go after your character. They'll take it to a whole other level and they'll say whatever it takes. No matter how untrue, how cruel, how unkind, no matter what it takes, they will work to assassinate and annihilate your character. And this is very painful for those of us who have been on the receiving end of a full-blown smear campaign, in particular in early healing and recovery. It's not an easy thing to have to endure. And this is where I come back to when we're doing the real work of healing and recovery, and we've got a solid support system around us, and we're working on really establishing or nurturing, if we've already established it, a relationship with a higher power of our own understanding, whoever that is, whatever that looks and feels like for you. We can get to the place where we're pretty freaking bulletproof. We're pretty bulletproof around that sort of thing. But it takes some work. It takes some work. When the narcissist can no longer control you, access you, target you directly, manipulate you directly, they will work to manipulate everyone's perception about you. They will work to manipulate how everybody sees you, what they think of you, how they feel about you. And I got to tell you, our job is to get to the place where we can rise above that and be non-affected. And I've walked that path in many areas of my life with family of origin, next level stuff. Maybe I'll bring it into some videos one of these days, but next level stuff, the kind of projection that these folks are capable of, right? I've dealt with it in my professional life. I've dealt with it romantically, and I've dealt with it with friends when they can no longer control you, manipulate you, exploit you, affect you, siphon your vital life energy from you, target you directly. They will work double time to assassinate your character. It's really, really quite sad. Can you imagine going through life that way, where you would have to have a target to unleash all of your unhealed, subconscious shadow, all of that dark shadow? You'd have to unleash that onto a target in order to feel alive, significant, even remotely okay about yourself. Pretty sick stuff. The reality is, this is the game that they play, and it's, daunting perhaps to conceive of, the fact that this is what I'm going to be on the receiving end of. But I say, better that you know in advance what to expect. Expect the worst case scenario, and then you'll be less likely to be taken out by that. And last but not least, what you can expect is they'll seek revenge. So this, there's some crossover there, because the smear campaign certainly serves as seeking revenge. But if you have unfortunately put yourself in a position where these folks have any leverage or power over you in any way, other than just being able to verbally assassinate your character and, smear you to whoever will listen, if they have any power or leverage over you, if you have unfortunately put yourself in a position where they can, actually come after you in an attempt to seek revenge, if they can't get through to you any other way, chances are real good that they will look for opportunities to seek revenge, to get even. I mean, how dare you draw a line in the sand and say no more, right? No more. No more abuse, no more bullying, no more projecting, no more blame shifting, no more insults, no more criticism, no more lies, no more deception, no more triangulation, no more, no more, no more, no more. How dare you say no more to all the nonsense that they bring to the table? But that's their mindset, right? That's their mindset. So if they have the ability and the opportunity, and they know that they can't get anywhere with regards to breaking through that barrier of no contact that you have established firmly and you are maintaining for the long haul, forever and ever period, game over, we're done. If they can seek revenge, they will. So know that in advance. I've had clients who, for example, going through the separation and the divorce, and the individual is out of the house but still has access to the mailbox. Don't let them have access to the mailbox, right? If they have the ability to come in and come back and seek revenge and get even one way or another, they're going to do it. So whatever you need to do to take away that leverage, to take away that power, and to protect yourself and anyone else in your care and in your charge from their attempts to seek revenge, do it in advance. Do what you need. I don't care how irrational, some people think, well, you're being dramatic, you're being unreasonable, you're being irrational. No, you're taking care of yourself. Give yourself permission. Do what you need to do. Better to prevent than to regret after the fact. And with all of that said, my friends, I'm going to call it a wrap today. I hope you got some value out of this. If you liked what you heard, remember to drop a like and a comment. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was. If you're new to my channel, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos throughout the week. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you'd like to learn more about the possibility of working with me in my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, you can either go directly to the website, Tamie M, M is in Mary, TamieMCoaching.com. Click on programs and reviews for all the details, or you can check out the link in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with either myself or a member of my team. And as always, I will leave you with this. Know your value. Know your value and unlock your freedom. Mwah. Much love. See you in the next video. Bye for now.